Welcome to AI and Human Flourishing. My name is Dwight, and I'm going to try to herd the cats and moderate this great group of panelists today. First up, though, the event is really being sponsored by a group called SIOC, Societal Impact of Computing. And Dazhi is now leading that particular charge. It's a BSU organized group, but they really want to encourage participation from people outside of BSU. So if you're interested in that, Dazhi might give you a little more information toward the end of the event. And the other thing we're going to lay down as a ground rule as we get started is that we are not going to have a conversation today about whether AI should happen. We are in the middle of it. We didn't get to vote on it. It is happening. And we're just going to say, well, how can we shape it and maybe have it lead toward human flourishing? And so the third thing, real quick, is human flourishing. We had a great conversation in our kind of prep session, and we had a lot of different ideas, and you'll hear from this panel on what those ideas are. But generally speaking, they're things you think of like, does it better your relationships? Does it help you with your financial position? Does it help you with learning and growth and those kinds of things? I think most of us felt that we're part of being human. So that we're going to go with that as kind of a framework as we go in. They may take it differently. And to see this great panel, if you scan that QR code up there with the B, it'll give the backgrounds on all of them because we wanted them to have maximum time to kind of share their point of view. So with that, I'm going to ask each of them to kind of introduce where they're sitting in this conversation, and I'll start with you.
Hi, my name is Crisci. I'm co-founder and CEO of a healthcare organization called Ovum Health. We help bring healthy babies into the world. And we have applied AI into almost every area of our practice. I also help other healthcare organizations, even multi-billion-dollar ones, apply AI in the most ethical way possible for their practice.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dazhi Yang, and I'm a professor of educational technology. I also serve as the Associate Director for Computing and Society in the School of Computing at Boise State.
I'm Ed Ferrier. I'm a philosopher who infiltrated this group. And I do philosophy of technology, and I'm particularly interested in some of the teaching that I'm doing on AI impacts on and significance for cognitive value and cognitive development.
My name is Noah Riley. I'm a founder of a company called AI Genius Automations. I build AI-powered automations and software, enterprise software for typically mid-sized companies, usually with the aim of saving time. Sometimes it's more UX-driven to add more value, but mostly in the business world where I operate.
Good afternoon. My name is Rich Stuppy. I'm a retired technology executive. I'm here in my capacity as a volunteer for the Boise State School of Computing. My approach, or the way I think about this, is I'm contrary, I'm skeptical, and I'm also an optimist. And I think that the people are going to be all right. And as long as we recognize what we do really well versus the machines, we're going to be all right. There going to be some stiff competition, but I still think we're going to be all right. All right, all right, all right.
Yeah, he's our resident comic too, which is great. All right, so I'm going to tee up the first thing. Ira, who's in the back there, oversees the College of Computing, and he put together an event at BSU 6 months or so ago, and there were like 200 people that attended, and most of them were students. And I've never seen a student group stay for the entire event. And none of them left, and they went up and asked questions of the people who were there because they were very concerned about their jobs. And that was really what was driving the attendance. So the first thing I want to get the panel to speak on, and you can jump in randomly on this, is this whole idea of jobs and career ladder. And so I'm going to throw out a kind of a hypothetical to maybe frame it up. So let's say I'm a CEO, I'm a director of engineering, and I want to hire 2 junior software engineers. And I tell them, before I approve any new hires, I want proof that AI tools cannot deliver the productivity he needs with the current team. If AI can do the work, why add the people? So that's where I'm sitting in that conversation. And so it's kind of like, how will this, work for us to open up with human flourishing? Does anyone want to take a swing at that out of the gate?
I think Noah should start on that one. I'll go second.
Well, since that's what I do primarily in my day-to-day is building software and coding with AI systems, and as someone who has hired and let go of 2 junior developers, I can tell you that there is no realistic world where junior development is a thing anymore. There's no reason for anyone to write code line by line. AI is significantly better than us at that already. There is no argument for that. There is no, you can, if you want to test it over and over again, you can. You will never find a situation where a junior dev is better than Cloud Code. You'll never find it. It's just not going to happen. So one of the things that these systems struggle with is system architecture. As a project grows, understanding how to apply context over a large, complex system that requires a lot of different domains to be interconnected. So in terms of the job itself, and you'll see a lot of things, I think, like this in the job market where AI is starting to kind of push in some of those lower skills. You'll see a lot of these jobs go from like a bachelor's level education to needing a master's level education, and eventually they'll need like a PhD level education because you become essentially a systems architect. And that's why I always tell my team, we are not devs, we are systems architects, which means that you have to be smarter than the AI that's writing it because you have to be able to watch what it does and essentially direct it over an entire system over a long period of time, which is much more difficult than writing individual blocks of code. So it's just a higher skill threshold, I think.
And I second that it's system architecture approach, and that we need a lot more thinkers. And I think that the skeptics, the fear mongers of AI, my favorite one is Ed, that we're afraid that it's going to replace thinking, and in my experience, it's the opposite. It actually supports a level of metacognition in the workplace that you can develop and cultivate that wasn't possible so fast. So metacognition being learning how you think and thinking even better, stronger, faster is something that is possible with the AI tools at our fingertips. And so now we're looking at, well, who can actually bring that systems level thinking? Who can bring that type of architecture approach? And it's a new type of skill set in the job market. And it's certainly a new approach even to how we build and deploy these healthcare systems. I work in a heavily regulated environment. I'm applying some of the same principles that Noah is in non-regulated environments. And it's complex thinking. It's a new level of knowledge worker.
I got called out, so I'm going to jump in now.
Affectionately.
Yeah, right. I mean, what this brings up, so you were mentioning, in general, I wouldn't be concerned if it was moving, if the trend is, well, we're just going to move people from working one type of job or fulfilling one type of role to another. So you go from line-by-line coder to systems architect. The thing that gets me worried is, so there's sort of two ways of approaching it. One is just, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't think anyone thought that you could have these applications be doing the job of your entry-level software engineer. I don't see any principled reason to think that they're not going to be doing the job of your systems architect in another 5 years. So, that might be okay for 4 or 5 years. You move to a systems architect, and then you're losing that, or that's now under threat from AI. So, I'll just stop there. That's sort of one concern I have. We're sort of just white-collar work all across the board, not just moving from one role to another, but it just goes away. There was an interview that Mustafa Solomon just gave last month. He was saying 12 to 18 months until we get AI that basically the human being that sits down in an office in front of a computer doing anything, not just entering code, is replaceable by AI in 12 to 18 months.
I think the concern that this is pointing to, but not stating explicitly, is the concern about the collapse of the career ladder. The idea that you have to start in a particular place, you go in a straight line, rung by rung, and you eventually end up somewhere. I personally believe that is a fiction. The reason I know that that's a fiction is it's a straight line, and it's rung by rung, and anybody who's experienced life would probably say, that ain't how that shit works, bud. I do not believe that we should be concerned that you're not going to be able to jump into the middle. We designed the career ladder because that's how we felt like we could teach, we could instruct, we could manage youthful work. Now everybody's going to have a journeyman in their pocket to some degree that's going to help them jump in on the multi-dimensional squiggly thing that is not a ladder. And the people are going to be okay if they learn to kind of read and react based on that set of circumstances.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to the next question, and Dazhi, maybe you could tee this one up for us. This particular one is about human flourishing, which is the point of the panel. And let's say there's a company and they're using AI effectively, and it moves everybody who works there to a 4-day work week, and most people in this room would be like, hooray, and no reduction in pay. So that sounds great, right? 4 days. Productivity stays high, and on paper, this looks like it's a great win. But over time, some of the employees begin to feel a little less needed, a little less connected to the mission, and less certain that their work even matters. And so what the question we want to tease out by the panel, and maybe Dazhi, you could start for us, is if people have more time and less stress, but also less purpose and connection with who they are and what they're contributing, how do we navigate that?
This is a really interesting question because I'm teaching 3 courses each semester and have multiple projects. So I will always say, oh, that's too much. I need some break. But I think on the other side, I enjoy what I'm doing. So we probably all agree that well-being and human flourishing has more dimensions, not just efficiency or comfort. It has purpose, right? It has connections. It has the feeling of your work and your presence matter. So if we focused on the efficiency, the AI can increase one dimension of the wellness, but probably diminishes or reduce the other dimensions of the well-being or human flourishing. Probably there needs to be a balance between the reducing of workload and working hours and how we can still achieve the kind of balance of people feeling needed and purposeful and meaningful while not working too much. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I was sharing with the panel and kind of some of our prep that one of the most incredible times of my life where I felt like I was really flourishing was when I was going through cancer treatment. How's that for a contrarian statement, Rich? Not exactly what you think of. But when we were talking about what does human flourishing mean, and I was considering this alignment of living your life truly just so inside of your purpose and values, that's how I experienced going through cancer treatment about 18 years ago. Right when I was diagnosed and the flurry of kind of adrenaline and activity that was going on for me, I had this moment where I thought, oh, I'm supposed to start a nonprofit. I'm supposed to make sure that other people can preserve their fertility if they also are facing something like this. That gave me this brand new purpose in life that I had never considered before. I was already living a purpose-driven life before this. And suddenly, I was just impassioned for it. So I spent the darkest time of my life contributing to something for free. I was volunteering to solve these problems. It's a thing that propelled me forward. So I think that we can't be prescriptive in life and decide for everyone, how am I going to design your life for you, or how am I going to design your work life such that you experience human flourishing. To me, that agency that you have needs to design that for you. And so if a 4-day work week works for some people on my team, but a 6-day work week works for others because they don't have anything else, they don't have any hobbies yet in life, and they don't know how to spend those days off, then that's okay too. I just don't think it can be in a box.
Very good.
Can I add something there? So I agree with the work is a very fulfilling activity for humans. Here's another thing about humans, though. We oftentimes need necessity to get us to do the very things that make us happiest and are most fulfilling. So it's not... If the 4-day work week case, to me, raises the following sort of concern. Take myself. I mean, I find my work... I'm also at Boise State. I find my work very fulfilling. But I do it and work hard at it every day to a large extent because there's a lot of things that I have to do. If someone all of a sudden said, Ed, what you're doing is great. It's up to you. I want you to find fulfillment in your work. But, if you want to take that extra day off or whatever, we've got the technology that can kind of like do that stuff for you on that extra day. I'll tell you what I think I'm going to do in that situation. I'm going to work less and I'm going to be less fulfilled. So we sometimes need the fact that it's necessary to work to achieve the fulfillment that work provides us.
We invite you to be an entrepreneur now in your free time, Ed.
Come over to the side.
I think something that everybody eventually comes to acknowledge is that life is really complicated, and me by myself, I do not have all the answers, and that's where philosophy comes in. And I actually think everybody needs to have a philosophy, because when the questions get super hard, philosophy is the thing that points you in the right direction to answer the questions for which there are no answers. And there's lots of them out there that will help you figure out, and maybe not figure out, but at least spend a little bit of time thinking about what is the goal here? Why am I doing this friggin' thing? And is that a good and virtuous and flourishing goal? Or is it me being a jerk? Or pick your poison. But now more than ever, I do believe to uncover our humanity and keep us flourishing, we need each of us individually needs a philosophy to help us figure out what we're doing.
Go to the next question. Okay, you know what? Let me go to the next one. You can tee this one up. This is kind of focusing on human judgment, because one of the things that most people are talking about is it's still going to require humans to pick the problems we want to solve, and you exercise the judgment of how we can exercise human flourishing, whatever that looks like. So here's a hospital, and they're using AI, and they're trying to help decide which patients should receive high-touch follow-up care after discharge. A nurse strongly disagrees with one of the recommendations coming from the AI system and wants to override it. But leadership says too many overrides reduce consistency and increase legal risk. So the question is, when AI is statistically strong, but a human professional believes it is wrong in a specific case, how do we navigate? How do we break the tie? What do we do?
You fire that hospital administrator.
Yeah. Noah, do you want to start us on that?
I think in the practical world, it's going to end up coming down to probably money and PR, what the actual decision that gets made. If someone makes a really bad decision, then a really bad thing happens, then that will carry policy for a really long time. I think that's like the practical thing. The human side is different. Because let's say that the human made the recommendation, the AI made a different one. It turns out the human was right. Like, again, same thing. Depends on what it looks like in the public. Was it just like the person was sick for an extra month, or did they die a gruesome death? If they died a gruesome death, the policy will change for a decade. If they were sick for a month longer, probably no one will hear about it. So that I think that's kind of like the practical side of what would actually happen in that situation. What should happen? I would say that in general, we tend to make good decisions when we're really focused on. Well, especially you put an expert in their field, like you take a nurse and they're using like their best judgment based on all their experiences to say, no, I'm really sure about this. There may be a really good reason to trust that over an AI system. I don't think that in general we have a situation, especially in our medical system, where we have our best minds paying 100% attention to all of our cases, and statistics will more often get it right than people when we can't do that. But I'm sure you have lots of thoughts about this.
When's it my turn?
But I think there'll be, unfortunately, some part of it that's a little bit experimental, but I think that's like with a lot of different kinds of medical technology. I don't really know what the right thing is. I can't say. There are so many different factors. If it was my person who is in that situation, like, would I choose the nurse's opinion or the AI's opinion? I would be like, well, can I get more information? And would I understand it? Would I ingest it correctly? Would I know? Would I trust the nurse because they're a cool person? Would I trust them less if I think they were an asshole? Like, how many different elements of it are emotional, that are logical, that are statistical? Like, there's too many. There's too many for us to be able to be like, this is the right decision to make. I think that we really have to just kind of be okay with, I think to Rich's point, like, life is messy and inexact in so many different ways, and it's impossible to calculate some things. I would hope that in the next, in the coming years, where AI continues to infiltrate so many different parts of our lives, that we give ourselves a little grace when we try to figure it out. Because I don't think that it's going to be. I think there'll be a lot of amazing things, and I think there'll be a lot of harm. I think it'll be both.
Very good. Thank you. Please.
So many juicy things on this particular topic, and since I work in healthcare, I come at it from first the perspective of an LLM is not on its own the tool. And every use case we have in healthcare starts with an LLM, or 4 or 5 of them as an aggregate. And on top of that is your proprietary training layer. So in that use case, if the AI tool that was used is not also trained for quite a long time on that particular human being, I don't want any AI being a clinical decision support tool for that specific case. I would never deploy that. There are so many use cases in healthcare that will save your life. Case in point, you're at a busy ED, emergency department. You came in with a gastro situation. You go and get CT imaging, and you have to do a bacterial sample of your stool. One piece of data comes back, the other piece of data comes back inconclusive, and a human decides what your diagnosis is based on the inconclusive data because they just happen to not see the other piece of data that was conclusive. That happens all the time in our emergency departments every single day. An AI tool very quickly can go, hey, that diagnosis actually doesn't match up with the data that I'm looking at. It's a great little use case. So your personal doesn't need any training on you as an individual whatsoever, but it's just catching errors as they're about to happen. Our use cases are, the intent is to put the human time back into the patient care. We are paid the most per minute if we only see our patients for 15 minutes. I did the math. We are paid the most if we limit it to that. We see our patients for 60 because I'm willing to take less margin and use AI tools to make sure that we can afford to take less margin to give you back the human time in your care.
Alice, I think you'd be the person to ask this question to. So what do you say about, I've read these studies, for example, that are seem to be indicating that, okay, so here's the worry. The nurse in the hypothetical case that's saying, I have this human judgment that I've developed over time and it's disagreeing with the AI. The worry is that that nurse is going to be going away. Why? Because the nurse in the future is going to be using the AI kind of from the beginning and will have their human judgment skills in that area of expertise are going to diminish as a result. Is that something that you think is a concern?
It's definitely not the 12 to 18 month window. That's definitely not around the corner. I think that what we're encouraging is how you utilize AI is contributing to the development of these tools in that they can contribute to human flourishing. So we're using the tools to help improve human judgment, not to diminish it and not to diminish the capacity, which is why I kind of focus on metacognition even with my own kid of if you're thinking about how you're thinking and you're constantly evolving that, then you can utilize those tools to support these softer skills that I think are going to becoming increasingly more important. You and I talked last year about we need philosophers back at the legislative table because less thinking is happening, right? People are not debating the values and how those values get expressed through policy. And so much of the use of AI comes down to you having a seat at the governance table.
Rich first, and then you, Ed.
Yeah, just this is a question about risk and words to live by. Risk is what's left over when you think you've thought of everything, and it's never gone. So even in this scenario, whichever was the quote right answer, it was a probabilistic outcome, and doesn't mean you shouldn't try hard, but risk is what's left over when you think you've thought of everything and it's never gone.
I'm going to do something controversial.
Okay. You're agreeing?
And agree with Ed. In part. No, I think this is important because it touches on two different sides of the same issue, which is that I think you're right. I think that it will be much easier for people's judgment to diminish, and that there will be fewer people who are able to fulfill the role correctly because the skills required to work alongside an AI system are going to be more than being a nurse in general previously required, and that will be a smaller pool of people. I think those people will start to get pushed out, and that not because it's not possible, because it's harder. I think that's what the bell curve is. It's literally like a shape that says, this is how hard things get over here. And you only get to this tiny little bit over here if you're willing to go through a lot of hard things. And I think that AI is putting a ton of pressure on that in a lot of different ways. And so I think that, yes, there'll be less judgment used, and those people will start to make more mistakes, and there will be fewer nurses, and then the nurses who are there are going to be way more knowledgeable. They'll have that mind that's able to work alongside those systems, and they'll be curious. They'll be looking for problems more proactively, and knowing how to use the systems to do so, and knowing when to not trust the AI and when to bring things up. But I think that's a much more difficult skill set to have than just read a chart and then pass the thing along.
Thank you, Noah. Dazhi,
I
please.
want to add one thing. As much as I'm a strong tech advocate, right, especially for AI, I'm all in, use it. But in this case, I feel the ultimate decision should remain in humans' hands, because the nurse be aware more of the human context of this case. I think especially in this healthcare, in medical field, it's very critical. I don't think people are comfortable right now with the decisions making by AI. How many of you are willing to listen to AI instead of a human? But I'm not, right? So I feel when we talk about AI and human flourishing, I strongly believe that humans should be making the final decision instead of AI, especially in critical, consequential situations.
Very good. Okay, we're about halfway through, and so we want to open it up to you. And if you don't have the questions, we have a few more. Sure, apparently we do.
Yay.
Oh, here, let me give you a mic. Loud and proud.
Love it.
Every new technology, especially a foundational technology, has an adoption curve in the marketplace. AI has been shoved into every nook and cranny very quickly. When do you think this foundational technology will settle out and just become part of the furniture?
In the background, kind of like it recedes to the background and less.
Yes.
I mean, it's a great question because I think
Yeah.
you circulated, Dwight, that 85% of humans on the planet haven't interacted with AI at all. Yeah, so I think we're still a ways away. Is it? It's a faster adoption than what we've seen with other things. But the thing that I liken it to is the advent of social media, and the reason I do that is it's going to progress in the way or have the positive impact in the way that computers did in a lot of areas. However, we have to guard against the detriment that we have with social media. The guy who invented doom scrolling, it's his biggest regret in his whole entire life because of the addictive behavior that it created and how unhealthy it's been for humans. So that it's the balance of that, of like knowing, hey, is this going to speed up problem solving, speed up solutions, help us normalize or even democratize certain aspects of humanity, but with far more guardrails and caution than we ever had with social media.
I don't think anyone anticipated ChatGPT psychosis at all.
So, any other comments to this gentleman's question?
I want to add, it's a very interesting question. AI is reshaping society in ways we just begin to understand, right? So its applications, especially physical AIs, may soon become as embedded in daily life as computers and mobile devices are today. So because of that, AI will have impact into almost every aspect of daily human experiences. So we all have a shared responsibility in terms of the application, adoption of AI. The speed depends on every one of us, not just a specific group of people. So we need to learn, stay curious, and to be engaged in AI.
I think one of the key features of normalization of a technology is trust. So when a technology becomes normalized, you just trust that it's going to work, and you don't worry about its failing for the most part. In that regard, I think AI adoption, where I see it amongst my students, has gone way too fast. So they say that they don't trust it. They say, who is the gentleman who was making the comment? Maybe we're all in a hallucination, right? Yeah. They say things like that, and then you look at what they do. So what we say and what we do is oftentimes very different. I spent 75 minutes on Monday afternoon in my Human and Machine Intelligence course going through an exam where I said, you could use AI for anything, any part you want. Going through question by question by question where I had to curve it generously. Why did you answer it that way? And a lot of the responses were, well, that's what I got from the AI. I caught myself the other day. I couldn't believe it. I was sort of in doubt about, I was trying to remember the answer to a question, and it was going one of two directions, and I put it into ChatGPT, and it came out one of the two, and I felt confirmed that it must have been that one. And then I went, what the hell am I doing? So I worry about this. We might, when asked, say, oh, I'm very skeptical. I'm actually even worried about how it hallucinates all the time. But then what we do on a day-by-day basis is really taking its judgments for granted and just assuming that they're correct.
Very good. Another question. Yes, sir, in blue.
So we talk a lot about how AI it will replace knowledge work, white collar work. I think there's a counter argument to that no, it'll actually just make us all busier because of more is expected of us, because more things are possible. We're constantly having to adapt, pivot, learn new things. If we're not constantly growing the pie, then we're irrelevant. I guess to Noah's point, kind of that, the expectation is that you've got to race to the right side of that bell curve, or you're irrelevant. So I'd be curious if you had any thoughts on AI actually accelerating human burnout.
Oh, I was going to let you go first, Ed.
Oh, okay. There's a Harvard Business Review article that came out just last month that had a lot of evidence that was suggesting exactly this sort of problem, that employees are reporting being spread out in way more tasks than they were before, really getting over their heads in those tasks, and then doing and just fatigue at trying to finish all those tasks because of it's sort of like they wouldn't have even got started on so many if they didn't have the AI tools to enable that that promise of increased productivity. And then a lot of the companies are passing around like questionnaires and doing evaluations of employees based on questions like, how has AI use allowed you to increase, show me how you've gotten more productive with the use of AI tools. So there's pressure to use them, pressure to show that you're more productive with them, and we're seeing, I think, some of the consequences in some cases are burnout. I think it's concerning.
I would say this is a common refrain about new technologies, and the printing press, radio, the internet. Like, how are these meat bags gonna handle the new crushing burden of living inside your own head when the voices just won't stop? And the answer is, I don't know, but we seem to have been able to do it. And the folks that I know that push their work ethic and their efforts as if they are along the lines of a professional athlete. They want to excel. They want to exceed expectations. They want to win. And depending on your philosophy, what's worse? Having the chance to, quote, change the world and, not getting it because you took a half a day off because circumstances were such that mattered? Or is it worse to go home exhausted every day and put your head on your pillow knowing you're if it was possible, you did it? I don't know. That's for the people, that's for the philosophy inside an individual to understand, in my humble opinion.
Love that. Yeah, that was good, Rich. I understand. I think both sides, because you had made a point before, and there's something that we hadn't we kind of danced around. You said more explicitly. I'll say for myself, it doesn't matter what technology comes or doesn't come. the things inside me that drive me aren't changing. Like, I am me, and so if this technology is here or not here, my disposition towards how I live my life or what kind of the magnitude of the goals that I want to accomplish isn't changing. The tools that I use to do that is, the world that I'm living in is, but I'm not. And so it's kind of the similar thing with oh, do we trust AI? Like, well, do you trust Google? If you trusted the first result that came up on Google, you're probably the same person that trusts AI without verifying. It's the same thing in your head that does that, right? It does nothing to do with the technology. If you're a person who digs, you're gonna dig with AI, and you're gonna dig with Google. Like, it doesn't make a difference. Like, it's just a reflection of who we are. It's a new tool, same ideas, same people. And so if we're talking about, like, are we going to create a situation where we're all going to get super burned out? I'm like, well, I mean, if you're the kind of person who's going to burn out, like, with the, if you're that person, you probably, yeah. Yeah.
We've got 2,000 men to burn out.
If you're looking for the minimum that you can do, then you'll probably oversell how hard your job is, use AI for everything, and then take half the day off and tell your boss you have so much to do. You're that person. If you're the person who is going to cheat on all your way through school, and it's easier now you're going to cheat more. Like, like the person who was like, no, I want to learn. They're not going to cheat because they want to learn. It's them. It's not the tech. I get really frustrated when I'm in these situations where people are always pointing at the thing outside of them as opposed to the person, because the technology is not telling you to do or not do anything. It is reflecting you. It's reflecting us. It's reflecting me, my decisions, my principles, my ideas, my drive, my goals, right? It's not doing anything to me. ChatGPT doesn't come on my computer and pull me in and make me do things, right? Like, I go to it and do things. I go to my computer and do things. I choose to go to my job. I get in my car every day. I think that the closer we can get to, like, starting to stop pointing at it like it's doing all this stuff and starting to think about what our role is in our personal life, we'll get so much further in that conversation than always pointing at, well, AI is doing X, Y, and Z.
Right, let's let Alice put a pin on this one, and then all the way back, I saw that.
Sure.
Hang on one quick second. Finish.
Well, I was simply going to bring up that the innovation economy is something that a lot of folks are not talking about with the adoption of AI. The innovation economy has the most failures of any aspect of our society. 99% of startups fail within 10 years and have great ideas that just fail and go into the ether until somebody else picks up a similar solution to solve that same problem. And somebody had brought up, like, in our pre-talk about problems that we're solving and using AI to. It makes it possible to innovate for far less capital than ever before. That has given me as an entrepreneur far less burnout, because I don't have to rack up a $100,000 legal bill. I can rack up maybe a $5,000 one because I do start with ChatGPT, and my lawyer knows. And if I haven't done that, he says, oh, hey, can you just save us both of time? Like, give me something to react to. Yeah, I'd love to. So I think that there are these areas of society and our economy that are benefiting tremendously by being able to arm us with tools that used to cost a ton of money. So I look forward to that.
All the way back.
Hi. So I'm late to the party, but I apologize if you guys already. We can hear you. Okay. If you guys already discussed this, but I work in a heavy tech environment in a very analog job. I run a plant shop, but I have a lot of tech people who come in. I'm from the Bay Area, so I'm like right in the middle of like a real tech bro hub where I work, and I see a lot of, I guess you could call it confirmation bias. They think it's the latest thing, so it must be better. So we get the tech bros pulling up on their Tesla, and they have their plant list, and they have it all done from ChatGPT. And then they load up, and they're like, okay, I'm going to water this plant 3 times a day, right? And I'm like, what? I think we all know. And they said, well, I looked it up on ChatGPT, and so it gave me the instructions. And so I'm finding I'm having to do a lot of corrections because the human tendency is it's the latest thing, so it must be better right away. But I'm finding you really need to have the skills to use it, to put in and see what comes out. And I'm still feeling like people are still going up the mountain. out where I am. And I mean, I'm in a heavy tech. I have customers who are computer scientists who train computers to interact with humans and people like that. But they're still coming up the mountain when it comes to something very analog, like something on the ground that you can see. And I mean, this guy would have figured it out. You know, you can't water.
He would have drowned his plant.
Yeah.
Eventually.
He would have figured it out eventually, but I feel like there's a little bit of that bias that we have, like since it's new, it automatically might get better, but I feel like people are still teaching it. It's still learning. It's still going.
So let me to you guys to maybe shape her question to the panel. There's this human expertise people pick up in their body over a career, right? You read the book and then you go do the work. And you go, oh, that's not exactly the way I read it in the book. You know, it's a little different. And so by the time you are towards the end of your career, you've really gained some body knowledge about life. And I think what you're partly saying is, how do we combat somebody who's an expert in a certain domain, plants or what have you, against these tools that are saying and looking like they're right, but they may be off? So jump in.
I mean, when I think of flourishing, if you go back to the Greek philosophers, I'm the philosopher, so I get to talk about the Greek philosophers. Aristotle has, I'm really interested in the cognitive impacts, and that's sort of half of the picture, according to him. But what your question reminds me of is that there's another part of the puzzle for flourishing, according to the Greeks, which is social interactions, or what they would call the political life, by which they don't just mean campaigning or something like that, but your social role and social interactions. I'm currently doing a study with one of my students on how always having the availability of AI to answer any sort of question that you might, in the past, have reached out to another human for, whether it's personal advice with a relationship, or where the best, trying to get advice on who you should take your class from, if you're looking for certain things out of the class, and we haven't completed the study yet, but the anecdotal evidence that I've got so far is the ubiquity of the technology is, and in a way, it's sort of a obvious thing, I guess. It's discouraging. It becomes no longer necessary to have those human interactions. And to get back to a point I made earlier, we don't just do good things, things that are good for us, because we just sort of freely and autonomously look around the world and go, oh, I'm going to do the things that are good for me. It's just not the way human psychology works, unfortunately.
You have to try to do good things. You actually have to look for them.
You do things oftentimes because there's some need, and the availability of the technology reduces a lot of the need for human interactions.
I would just like, you see it happening, you see their people, you see your role as a facilitator, advisor, mentor in the plant world. Use your power to detect when they're not as smart as, when they're not using their noggin, they're using chat GPTs, and just help them along. Like, it'll probably make it easier to start the conversation if they're as hard to talk to as most computer scientists I know. So maybe you give them a prompt that they can go talk to their computer and come back later.
I literally was about to bring up prompts. Oh my gosh. So this is a use case that we have that is relevant, but it's healthcare related. In a couple of hours, one Monday afternoon, I was very frustrated by the denials I was getting in submitting insurance claims. And I was getting rejections at the clearinghouse level. Doesn't matter if you have no idea these words coming out of my mouth. I was getting rejected. This was a point of failure. My claims weren't getting processed, and I needed my people to get paid. So in a few hours, I figured out that I could build a custom tool. So first I was asking the LLMs, it's just an average. That's all an LLM is. It might be better than you in some cases, it might be worse than you in some cases, but it's just an average. So yes, for the rest of history of AI, LLMs should be continuously learning. That said, these custom projects you can do where you train it yourself. I had to download 35 payer policy documents per insurance payer. I've got 200 contracts. So I had to do that 200 times. I did it in a couple of hours, and I built a little tool so that I could ask the tool, hey, how do I order my diagnoses codes per this payer for this particular patient? And boom, 0 errors now, 0 rejections at the clearinghouse. So the regular LLMs aren't pulling those policy documents because they're behind firewalls. So that it's not in the average of, but I was able to customize this little tool. So you could give a prompt and have little prompt cards that says, use this prompt instead if you want to get the information that you want where you're not going to drown your plants. You could have little cheat sheets that says, if you want a custom project, here are our top 5 sources for plant health, and tell them where to go. But you're not wrong. It's imperfect. And everyone should acknowledge that and reinforce it. It's imperfect. That's why I don't like the word intelligence with it.
We have time for one more question. Okay.
I called it over here, actually.
Oh, you
yeah,
got
he
it.
was
Please
early.
go.
All right, I got a doozy. Okay, so you said earlier on, you said 4-day work week. And I am so pro that. I'm so pro 3-day work week. I'll find a lot of, I find great value outside, spending time with my kids, that kind of stuff. So I was a lead engineer at a local company here. Now I'm a lead architect at an AI company down in Florida. I went from writing all my code last year to writing absolutely none now. And so we all know we live in a capitalist society. So I work at a company that's job is directly to replace people. I build voice agents to replace people that talk on the phone, to replace any triage agents for healthcare. Like, that is my job. So how, in a capitalist society, do we advocate for AI to help us reduce the amount of time we're working rather than replace people? Because we all know that it's not about Ramsey working less. It's about Ramsey working just as much as he can and replacing 2 other people. So how do we advocate for working less?
Great question. Dazhi, kick us off on this one.
Well, this is a hard question too. Right, tough.
Yeah, keep the same pay.
Yeah, it's when I talked with, because in academia we have annual evaluation, right? And we know everyone in higher education works so hard. And I had a conversation with my chair the other day. I said, wow, everyone was so hard, so productive. He said, no, not everyone working 40 hours per week as productive as some of the top performers. I said, okay, I haven't thought about that. So relating to your question, I think this, on one side, we want to reduce the working hours. We have to rely on some technology to make it more efficient, right? And then on the other side, okay, what you are going to do with your free time? Are you going to do something fun for yourself? Are you doing something meaningful for the community? If you are, it's all contributed to human flourishing, right? So in terms of like your job is writing programs to replace people, I have to say I really hate to talk with robotic voice. I always call the customer service. My first question is, give me an agent. And then the robotic voice like, oh, what you can help you? Then I just repeat, agent, until I got people to talk to. So yeah, it's kind of strange, right? I'm a very pro-tech person, especially AI. I would activate all in, from the personal level to the national level. But I still enjoy talking with people. So I guess that's kind of interesting way to reflect the people's unique side, right?
Noah, you're going to have the last word on this, and then we're going to do closing comments real quick.
I am not, because Ira is doing this to me.
All right, then we're going to stop. Here's what we are going to do now. And as we get the hook, which is okay, each of you just tell the audience quickly one takeaway. What would you suggest they leave with?
Develop a personal philosophy and switch your default search engine to AI one like Perplexity, just to see what happens.
Okay, Noah?
Curiosity is greater than resistance. I think if you force yourself to learn it, you will continuously find more ways that it is amazing to do all kinds of things in your life. Just use it. Just put hands on it.
Don't use it for a week.
So please sign up for our social impact of computing group, and we have monthly hangout where we can talking about anything. So we enjoy the conversation greatly. Thank you.
Yes, join the social impacts of computing group so that we can keep these conversations going. And I'm a plus two on the just use it. Just use it.
And most of these guys have LinkedIn. If any of you use LinkedIn, connect with them, and they'll be glad to carry on conversations with you. Thank you, panel. Good job.